This is a video about Viktor Schauberger and the eco-fascist trends of the future. So Viktor Schauberger was an Austrian forester and he created patents for logging mills. And some of his more widely known works, Schauberger was a nature lover to the core, and his patent for logging jams utilized a corkscrew-like motion of water which he witnessed in rivers in order to move logs through a trough more efficiently. However, the works of Viktor Schauberger embody the coming political and technological trends yet to come. Schauberger, at the time, was forced by the Nazis in order to develop jet engines. Historians and mainstream media will label him as a fascist, and this is the third party of the future, which will merge with the Green Party, the Libertarians, and the Civic Nationalists. Eco-fascism is the party of the future, as I like to call it. So the premise of this ideology being that environmental consciousness and sustainability supersedes the societal needs of the many for the longevity and the benefit of the world. And the easy way out is to instead create a global carbon tax in the name of environmentalism and environmental protection. So meanwhile, the avant-garde technologies will be dismissed because they are considered fascist, and they are not governed by a collectivized government that seeks to subsidize these ideas and technology. The new guard is the old guard, and I wouldn't go as far as to call it suppressed technology, but an inverted paradigm of current structures and beliefs that would turn everyone's world upside down and illustrate how corrupt and much lies we take hook, line, and sinker. So Viktor Schauberger instead stressed the scientific community at the time was viewing everything the opposite they should be. The majority of Schauberger's work stems from the concept of implosion research. And meanwhile, the quantum physicists and engineers were hell-bent on splitting the atom and furthering the production of the combustion engine. Schauberger believed that implosion and centrifugal machines were the way of the future by imitating nature. And this is eco-fascism, in other words.
At a convention of the Association for Implosion Research, Jörg Schauberger and Klaus Rauber unwrap a long-lost piece of equipment. In 1958, it was lost in America. One specimen allegedly took off from the workbench and shattered on the ceiling. According to a technical drawing of the prototype from 1940, the repulsine could, among other things, silently power an aeroplane without the need for fuel. Here, Viktor Schauberger wanted to mimic the energy processes that are generated in the curves of a riverbed. And then the air is sucked in here through the slots and brought into the diaphragm inside, so that the air flows around here in a circle.
Synthesis electricity is emitted through the central axis. That's why he also planned to incorporate this machine in aeroplanes as an alternative to the propeller for propulsion.
A revolutionary propulsion concept. The question of what happened to Viktor Schauberger's last repulsion becomes even more interesting. The research ranges from cold fusion to so-called zero-point energy. Its client list includes the American Space Agency, NASA. And here it stands on the test bench. Viktor Schauberger's repulsin from the year 1945. Richard Feierabend had brought the machine back to Texas shortly before he died. He wanted to know whether it could produce a lift, in other words, overcome the force of gravity. Hal Puthoff, head of institute and a renowned experimental physicist, showed Jörg Schauberger the test stand. Puthoff's colleague, Scott Little, used a stroboscope lamp to test whether the material would be deformed with a rising speed of revolution. At 2,000 revolutions per minute, the tests were aborted. There was concern that the half-century-old machine would fly apart.
Now, there is a lot of pseudoscience revolved around the works of Schauberger, who imitated the works of Franz Mesmer in his magnetized water experiments. And I've talked a lot about the Mesmerist movement and a lot of these topics in some of my earlier videos about phantasmagoria and animal magnetism. And a lot of these technologies and ideas led to snake oil salesmen and the charlatans of the eras to come. And Mesmer's magnetized water was nothing more than the use of electrolysis and dipolar electricity, that is, inverting the currents of a soluble solution in order to dissolve certain materials or conduct more. And modernly, you see this used in products such as colloidal silver. And there is some real science here because it is something that can be proven and it's physical and tangible. And a lot of these experiments and tests may contribute to the placebo effects, as it was later dubbed after Mesmer's pseudoscientific experiments. He's said to be the first hypnotist. And there are others that advocate for similar technologies, such as the Polish Jan Pajek, whom I made a video about a long time ago but took it down. Pajek created what he dubbed the supersonic boiler, and similar to Schauberger, coined the concept of dipolar gravity. Now, in mainstream media, these technologies will slowly seep out to the public in the form of New Age mysticism, for instance, those that advocate for free energy technologies without realizing the mechanical engineering aspect of Charles Proteus Steinmetz. Aside from the suppressed Tesla technology battle cry, you'll also hear this referred to as free energy technology, which is the over unity effect. And you'll also hear references towards Schauberger's vortex technology, referred to as the fractal universe, with more of the familiar reiterated buzz terms by the Joe Rogan bromos like sacred geometry, the Fibonacci sequence, water has memory, the usual pandering to the snowflake and would-be woke crowd. On and on and on it goes. Most of these claims will never be backed up, aside from someone that claims to be able to create a free energy, powerless momentum engine, a flywheel with a bunch of magnets because they took an intro class to mechanical engineering at community college or some shit. And we're dealing with the Joe Rogan bromos and the Terrence McKenna types that argue for the sake of the individual, which I would agree with, but they fail to convey the message of alternative information, dismissing the real entrepreneurs and the inventors as eco-fascist. I'll rest my case. Thanks for watching. Check the links in the description.